The New Hampshire real estate market has honestly been a roller coaster all year long, and I don't see it changing a ton. But in today's video, I'm going to be going over the trends that I've been seeing in this market coming into fall, which is quickly approaching here, and kind of let you in on some insights about the New Hampshire market. So whether you're looking to sell, buy, or maybe even relocate to New Hampshire, this video should give you some valuable insights on how to approach the housing market and what are the best practices right now. If you find this video helpful and it actually does provide that value, I would appreciate you hitting that like button and the subscribe, because I do put out weekly videos on the New Hampshire market or houses or living in New Hampshire. So let's get right into this video. So like I mentioned right in the intro, this has been a roller coaster of a year in real estate. I've only been in real estate about 4 years, so I'm sure every agent always says that every year is a roller coaster. But with 2024 being election year, I feel like just so much stuff is up in the air right now, and interest rates have actually been below 7% for the past 30 days pretty steadily. So that's good to see. At least we're under the 7 and the dreaded 7 that everyone hates seeing. But we don't really know what's happening next, because the feds are claiming that they're supposed to have their first rate cut of the year in September upcoming, but they also said that there were supposed to be I think at least 5, and then they cut it to 4 and then to 2, and now I think they're at 1. So we'll see if this rate cut actually happens. But depending on what happens with the rate cut, if they do it, how much it actually affects the mortgage rates is going to shake a little things up in the market. And I will mention that in a little bit. But right now, the New Hampshire market is starting to shift over towards the buyers. I'm not saying it's a complete buyer's market. It's not. And sellers are still listing and getting a really, really great price for their house. Even if they just bought it a few years ago, they're still seeing a ton of appreciation. The thing that's happening now, though, is homes are actually sitting on the market a little bit longer. Homes aren't receiving as many multiple offer situations as they were a year or two ago. Buyers are actually having a shot to negotiate with the first offer and not just putting in this exorbitant price and just praying that theirs gets accepted, even though they had to waive every inspection to protect them in the purchase. So it's good seeing a little bit more come to the buyers in the actual situation of buying and having some control over what they buy and how they buy it. And a good indicator to see that it is shifting over to the buyer's market is, as of July, there was 2,286 single-family homes listed in the state of New Hampshire. But in July, there was only 1,595 homes that were actually newly listed that month, compared to back in May, where it was 1,887. So we're still seeing a decent amount of inventory, but new listings aren't necessarily as high, which means some are sitting, and that's where buyers are finding their kind of opportunity to actually get something for below list. And for the past 2 months now, New Hampshire has been sitting at 2.3 months of inventory. And essentially what that means, if no new homes came on the market as of today, we'd have about 2.3 months until we're all out of inventory. This is the highest it's been in the past 3 years since really the pandemic hit. So it's almost like this might be the indicator that it's kind of a new buyer's market, because back before the pandemic, the way the housing market worked was, if there was usually around 3 to 4 months or less of inventory on the market, it was always classified as a seller's market. The sellers had control. And then if it was around 4, 6 months or even more than that, then it was automatically a buyer's market. But again, with the 2.3 months being a new high for the last 3 years, this is the most we've seen of a buyer's market in the last 3 years, and it's still crazy because it's only 2.3 months. And that leads us into one of the biggest issues in the New Hampshire housing market right now, and that is affordable homes, the starter homes, the homes for first-time home buyers, or the homes that retirees want to buy because it's supposed to be cheap, it's supposed to be easier to afford. The affordability is just not really here right now, and that's one of the biggest issues we're having. Because out of those 2,286 single-family homes on the market in July, less than 300 of those were below the $300,000 sales price. That is absolutely wild for New Hampshire because just a few years ago, I feel like the average sales price was in the 300s. And now there's nothing in that price range. And it's just really hurting people who are those first-time home buyers or retirees that are trying to downsize and they want to sell their house, but they have nowhere to go. That's where we're seeing a little bit of an issue in the market. And I do want to add in there, of those 300 that are below 300,000 or less, I didn't go through all those. Those were just pulled off the stats, but I'm going to assume that probably, I don't know, half of those probably need serious repair, and that's why they're so cheap. So that number can even be a little bit deceiving. And the other little indicator that is showing it's shifting a little bit away from sellers is the fact that July was the first time we actually saw a drop in the median sales price this year, where it went from 540,000 median sales price in the month of June down to 530,000 in the month of July. Small little decrease, but again, that might be an indicator that we're coming down off the peak, hopefully. Now, if you're looking to move to New Hampshire and relocate here, there are, of course, like every other state, places in the state that are cheaper to buy in than other places in the state. And I'm just going to cover and be right out in front. I only cover from like Concord down. So I'm going to stick mainly with the bottom half when I'm talking about this. But really up north of Concord, you have like Winnipesaukee area. And then north of that, it's just a bunch of woods. And you can probably find pretty cheap real estate up there. But there's not a ton up there business-wise and all that stuff. But for the southern part of New Hampshire, if you're looking for cheaper homes and still good price, or like still good house for the price, I should say, the western side of the state is probably the cheapest you're going to find. With Cheshire County, their median sales price is about $380,000, which is one of the lower in the states. And then right above that is Sullivan County, and they're about $475,000. But I feel like this is a little bit skewed because they have some lakes in their county, so I think those up the median sales price. But if you look in like places like Claremont, you can find pretty good single family houses for the mid 200s to mid 300 ranges, which is good to see. Again, there's not as many people, not as much business as if you moved into the middle part of the state where you have like Hillsborough County, which is one of the more populated counties because it has Manchester in it. But over there, the median sales price is $540,000. And it kind of continues around that price as you get into the coast and more over that way. Now, of course, every county is going to have certain towns that you'll probably be able to find cheaper options. But if you're looking anywhere around the bigger cities, which there really isn't a ton of bigger cities in New Hampshire, but those are, of course, the bigger the metro, the more expensive the house is typically. So that's kind of a good way to look at it. Doesn't mean that you can't be 25, 30 minutes from it and find a pretty affordable house. That is possible. So just keep an open mind when you're looking in New Hampshire, and remember that everything's kind of spread out because all the towns are so small. Before I wrap up this video, I just want to touch on the base of offers and future predictions for the New Hampshire market. So if you're in the housing market right now and you're looking to make offers, the one thing I've been repeating, I sound like a broken record on this, and I've been telling every one of my buyers that I work with, is each house right now, especially with this little bit of a shift in the market, every house is a really case-by-case situation. And the reason I say that is because the way I said, like, the market shifting toward buyers, it doesn't mean there's still not those houses that are going on the market and selling for $20,000, $30,000 above ask within the first week of being listed. Those are still happening. But the reason I'm saying it's case by case is because those ones are still happening when the seller is actually listening to the listing agent and they have a nice house. They price it at market value or even a little bit below. They know how to draw a crowd in. So those are still moving very fast. The ones that are sitting on the market for 30 days, haven't went under contract and have been just sitting there, those are the ones that, yeah, maybe there could be something wrong with the property. Or the seller just was hoping that they could get last year's price and they can't. So no one's been interested in seeing the property. Now you can go over there and be like, hey, it's been sitting. I can actually, if I want to, make an offer, and it doesn't have to be at or above list like every other situation. You could try throwing in a lower offer and see what they do. So that's where I'm saying each thing is really case by case in this market, and it's all dependent on where the price point is and the condition of the house, honestly. All right, and now time for the fun part where I get to try to have predictions in the future. Again, remember, I'm just a real estate agent in Keene, New Hampshire. It's not like I'm an expert at predicting the future of the housing market. I'm just kind of basing it off my last 4 years, what I'm kind of hearing for what's happening in the future. So the biggest thing I think we have to think about in the future is if the Fed's actually cut rates and how much that affects the interest rates of mortgages, because that's where there still are a lot of people, even though we're below 7% for the past 30 days or so, there's still people on the sidelines who are like, no, I'm waiting till it gets lower before I jump in. So if we have this rate cut and it drops rates on mortgages a lot, I think you're going to see a flood in the market and prices skyrocket once again, not necessarily because it's worth it, but because now there's way more demand, because even right now we're still 2.3 months inventory. Yes, it's the most we've had in the last 3 years, but it's not nearly enough. So if interest rates plummet, people flood in, months inventory drop back down to below 1, and we're back in the situation during the pandemic where houses were just going crazy. The other situation is, again, they could drop rates, but the mortgage rates react a little slower. They go down little by little, and this would be a more ideal way of doing it, because hopefully that would kind of give more people incentives to sell, therefore giving more inventory to the market, and then actually creating a more stable market. And sellers will have to understand they can't just price it at whatever they want. They actually have to come down a little bit. Hopefully that'll help lower the median sales price. Those are my guesses, because I'm assuming the rate cut's going to happen. It just depends on, I guess, how much it happens and how it reacts. In conclusion, the housing market, again, is a roller coaster. It's in a shifting spot. Right now, we're seeing little by little it's shifting towards buyers. In the past 2 months alone, I've had my own buyers, one of them, they had to go $50,000 above ask to get the house. I've had another one where we've been able to offer right off the bat and we got it down $25,000 below ask. So it's really case by case, like I said. And the number one thing that you're going to want to do when you're looking in the housing market, whether you're buying or selling, relocating, whatever you're doing, is getting yourself a good agent that's understanding how the market's shifting, understanding each house, and kind of how to ask the right questions and take advantage of the situation. Because again, if you love the house and it's at market value, well, you're hoping your agent's going to be like, look, this one's going to be hot, you're going to have to go over. They're not trying to talk you into just paying more for the house. They're trying to help you out to get to your goal. So that's the biggest thing, is really getting an agent that understands the market. And if you're looking to buy, sell, or relocate here, please feel free to reach out to me. If you think we make a good team, if you think we'd work together well, just reach out. I'd be happy to help you hit your goal of getting a house in New Hampshire. So I will catch you guys next week.